And it turns out that he was actually his father.
Glenn, you should never spoil a movie for me. My father spoiled a movie for me once. The following podcast contains spoilers for Johnny Dangerously. You have been warned, see?
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glen, Button, along with your host, Miguel Magusto.
That's a me. I don't know why I keep doing Mario. That's like my go-to whenever I can't think of anything to do.
It's such a good way to say it, though.
It really is.
It's a me, Magusto.
Magusto for Shusto. How you doing, Glenn?
I'm all right. I'm a tired little fella. I just went to the beach this weekend, and it was kind of the Friday we went in, and it was a beautiful day. It was a damn near perfect beach day. And then Saturday, it was absolute torrential fog everywhere with winds that were absolutely nuts.
Ooh.
Oh, so it was pretty cool. We walked on the boardwalk because they can't really go on the beach when it's ugly as hell out. You can, but it'd just be not fun. Especially when it's like low 60s.
Yeah.
And then that was pretty much our Saturday. And Sunday, we were like, oh, man, it's finally sunny out. But these winds are still crazy. So we just came home. So it was like a semi-decent beach trip.
They're a gamble, they are.
They are a gamble.
I personally hate the beach. I think the beach is a waste of land. I think they should all be turned into cement and fenced off. And we should keep the ocean as far away from us as possible.
I enjoy the beach. I think I don't enjoy everything else around it, and I don't trust people who like going every weekend.
Yeah, people who like going to the beach every weekend, calm your tits. Mm-hmm. Just calm them.
Straight
They're all over the
mellow
place.
out the boobs.
Mellow out those melons. And yeah, I am much more of a mountain lake kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even like going into the lake. I don't like boating on the lake unless it's like a sturdy boat. I don't like boats.
It's just pleasant to look at when you're not on a boat.
I'm not afraid of boats. I'm not afraid of boats. I'm afraid of like canoes because I am a very large person. So every movement I make, it affects the canoe like tenfold.
The buoyancy is wild.
Yes. So yeah, I just like if it's a sturdy boat, I'm fine. But if it's a kayak or canoe, get the fuck out of here. Yes.
And because I didn't take an actual like day off. I just am gonna make it up the rest of the week. I had to work 12 hours today, and then I'm gonna work 12 hours tomorrow. I'm gonna be a sleepy little lad this week.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But speaking of sleepiness,
yeah.
Have you watched anything?
Yes, I know what you're thinking. Glenn, there's no way you definitely watched more than 2 movies. You're right, I only watched 1, you silly goose, plus the one that's, well, technically 2 weird. It's kind of mandatory for me. So, no, I didn't watch any other movies. So, we watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse together on Thursday.
Yes.
There was a review out for that, a silly willy thing where we talk about our feelings and mostly the review a movie. Yeah. So that's going to be on the YouTube for that. And then, of course, I watched Johnny Dangerously. But in between then and now, I finally finished the show Banshee.
Oh.
Yes. As I was saying the last 2 weeks, it stars Anthony Starr. And it's basically just a fucking cracked out version of Pennsylvania Life.
Yeah.
It was good. There was 2 points where I actually was like, I'm done watching this show because somebody happens and things die. You know what I'm saying?
Dogs.
No, people. There is, Anthony Starr, he was fucking phenomenal in this, and it shows how like easily he got the Homelander role from it.
Yeah.
But there was one absolute shining star that I didn't mention the last 2 weeks, and that was Hoon Lee and his his character Job in this. He's basically I wouldn't say trans, but he's very like kind of flamboyant as a character. The word I was looking for was drag. But he's like so demanding and just like steals the show anytime he's in the room. He's just so fucking. I just want you to watch a couple episodes just to see him. I think I will eventually. He was in the first episode, so you don't even have to get that far.
Yeah, I saw him. I watched part of the first episode last week, and I saw him. He does seem like an interesting character. I really just have to be in the mindset to watch.
I don't think you're going to ever watch the whole show, but he is easily the most fantastic part of it, in my humble opinion.
Definitely.
So yeah, I finished that. I kind of want to start doing, because I've watched a lot of shows so far this year, I kind of want to, I know me, in my laziness, I kind of want to do like a review series where I like review the first season of a show, and then, you know, if I continue it, obviously I'll continue reviewing it. Because this one would have been a good one to start on, either that or Ted Lasso. But that's hearsay. Michael, what have you gotten yourself into this humble weekend?
I watched 6 movies. Yeah. First two being in my Ingmar Bergman collection. The first of those 2 is called Sawdust and Tinsel. It's about this circus ringmaster who visits the town of his abandoned family. That he abandoned, you know. It's of course. Not like, that's the only way you can have an abandoned family is if you abandon them. And it's essentially him and his mistress both wanting to be done with the circus and both thinking the other one is like being unfaithful. Because, it's a whole thing. I don't want to get too much into it, but it's pretty good.
How many movies do you have on that list left for...
I think like 19 or 20. I'm a little bit halfway. There's like 39 or 41, one of those two, and I'm about halfway. I don't know the exact number. I counted the other day, but I didn't write it down. But I'm over the halfway point at this point. So
there you go.
Yeah, should be done this year, hopefully. Definitely, as long as I keep watching them. There's like 16 discs left, and I plan on watching a disc a week until... it's gone, and some discs have 2 movies on it, so... Yeah. But yeah, Sawdust and Tinsel is pretty good. Then on that same disc was a movie called The Right. It's essentially about this theater troupe that is being interrogated by this police officer because their show is said to be immoral. Mind you, this is in the 60s, so, you know, there's a lot of censorship back then in pretty much every country. So, like, he's interrogating them as to what's going on. And, you know, shenanigans happen on both sides. A
little shenanigans.
Yeah, both sides are corrupt and evil, and it's pretty interesting. It's like a emotional and tonal whiplash from Sawdust and Tinsel. So it's just like, I just pulled a U right there where it just did sound
effects. You did.
But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. So there's that. Then we watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
That we did.
Which you said we have a review for on the YouTube, so you can check out what our thoughts were there. Then I rewatched Godland, which was one of the Icelandic movies I watched in Iceland. I know I said I'd stop mentioning I went to Iceland, but I didn't plan on watching this movie so soon.
Where'd you go?
Iceland. You know, Greenland is very icy, and Iceland's very nicey, or whatever the fuck the Mighty Ducks 3 quote is. But anyway, so yeah, rewatch Godland. I bought a Region B Blu-ray for it, which is a European Blu-ray, but it only had French subtitles, so there were no English subtitles on it.
I better start learning the language.
Apparently. So, you know, I'm a collector, so I'm not too upset that I have it. It's a little annoying that I have to buy it again when it is released in English subtitles.
Yeah.
But I was impatient. But, so yeah, I just watched it for the shots and the tone and everything. It's a beautiful film. Highly suggest people check it out when they can. Then I watched Johnny Dangerously, which we'll get into in just a second. And then I watched Fall, which came out last year. Is about those 2 women who climb a radio tower or a TV broadcast tower or whatever, and then the ladder that they climbed up there falls, and it's a whole thing. So much like boats and lakes and whatnot, I am not afraid of heights, but I do not trust man-made things that are that are not sturdy or, you know, big.
Yeah.
So, like, in that sense, yes, I'm afraid of heights, but, like, I'm not afraid to fly because it's high. I'm not afraid to be on a cliff because it's high, as long as, you know, it doesn't look like it's going to be eroded.
You're afraid of falling because of terribleness.
Yes, I'm afraid of falling, but not so much heights. And I don't trust man-made things because they're
pretty
often...
much the same way.
They're often not made for people my size. So that, you know, that adds to it. So pretty much anytime I see a movie like this where someone's climbing and bad things happen, I have no sympathy because they're just dumb people who don't tell people where they're going.
Yeah.
Like in this, they didn't tell anyone they were going to climb this tower. And then they get stuck. And it's stupid. It's dumb.
People do be making decisions that do suck. That was also that movie was also spoiled for me a little bit, so I don't know what happens.
It's kind of gross because both women have incredible cleavage throughout the entire movie, where it's like not necessary at all, and like I didn't hate it, but I felt bad for the actresses because I'm like, you're obviously just being used to sell tickets at this point.
Yeah.
And they're both pretty decent actors. The only problem I had is that they wrote it. You could tell they wrote it to be rated R, but then were told to edit it to PG-13. But instead of just cutting out all the curse words, they changed fucking to freaking, and no one says freaking. Like, I'm so freaking mad right now. No one says that.
I'm mad they're not saying fargin.
Fargin. Yeah, fargin. But yeah. Movie's effective. Writing is stupid. Felt really gross with how much cleavage there was, and like to the movie filmmakers' defense, I guess one of them is an Instagram, influencer. So I guess that is like they make a joke about it that's why she's dressed like that, but that was only for one of them, not the other one. And then towards the end, the other one has just as much cleavage, and it's just like, come on, son.
Come on.
Again, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it at all, but like I minded it. It felt gross.
I understand. I do.
Yes. So yeah, without any further ado, I guess let's get into Johnny Dangerously.
I'm not wearing a bra, Johnny.
That makes two of us. Oh, you got it what you had left, Ma.
His mother loves him.
I love him, but someday I'm gonna knock him on his...
We should spend some time together.
The DA loves him.
See, 2 weeks in Puerto Rico.
You got fire. Verb.
The new torch singer loves him.
You got those. I like those on them.
Little babies love him.
Oh, wait.
The warden loves him.
Johnny, it's an honor to have you on death row.
Ah, don't be silly. Pleasure's all mine.
Even the Pope loves him.
Build yourself a new gym at the Vatican, huh?
Well, this is one guy who ain't got no love for this phony.
You shouldn't hang me on a hook. My father hung me on a hook once.
Set in the 1930s, an honest, good-hearted man is forced to turn to a life of crime to finance his neurotic mother's skyrocketing medical bills.
Yes, directed by Amy Heckerling, written by Norman Steinberg, Bernie Cookoff, Harry Columbi, and starring Michael Keaton, Joe Piscopo, Mary Lou Henner, Maureen Stapleton, Peter Boyle, Griffin Dunne, Dom DeLuise, Glynis O'Connor, Danny DeVito's in there for a bit. Let's see, anyone else that I recognize? Not really. So this came up, of course, in Streaming Roulette. The main reason we both picked it is we both had seen it, but both did not remember much of it. You fell asleep. I just wasn't paying attention when it was on. So we wanted to see what our thoughts were. And
that we did.
The biggest thing for me, this movie is super goofy. I'm going to give it that. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's trying to be like Marxian, you know, the Marx Brothers. I know you haven't really watched any Marx Brothers, but it's just that kind of humor. But the pacing is all off. Like it feels like there's rooms for a laugh track, but there is no laugh track.
Yeah, it feels like the Naked Gun movies for sure.
Yes,
but without very well executed, without their execution.
Yeah. you could see what they were trying to do with every joke, just not all of them landed. So like it's possible that this is just, aged poorly. Not that there's any like terrible racist or sexist jokes or anything. There's probably a few. I don't really remember anything.
Yeah.
That was too bad, but it's just like the type of humor. When you watch like a comedy from the 50s or whatever, it's just not the same humor as we have today, so it's not really that funny.
I'm glad you said that, because if this movie came out 20 years before, I think this would have been a smash fucking hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was pretty much what I was thinking the whole time. Like, man, if this came out just 20 more years before its time, then I think we'd be seeing it everywhere.
Yeah, but like I think like the first 10 or 15 minutes didn't get a single joke or a single laugh out of me until he asks his obviously elderly mother how it feels to be 29 because it's her birthday. And that one was
pretty good.
Yeah, it's just so true. Like there's a meme going around from the film My Dinner with Andre, which for those of you who don't, I forget his name. Let me get his name real quick. For those of you who don't know, it stars the man who voices Rex in Toy Story, Wallace Shawn. He also is the inconceivable guy from Princess Bride. When that came out, he was 36 years old. And
really?
Yes. So there's a meme going around with a quote from him in that movie where he mentions he's 36.
Is that the one where he's like standing and waiting for a train or something?
Yeah, and he says, when I was in my 20s, all I thought about was art and music, and now all I think about is money. That's not verbatim the line, but it's close enough. And like someone was just like, the biggest lie here is that this man's 36. I can assure you he was 36. It's just people aged differently back then than they do now.
Yeah.
We have higher beauty standards for both men and women now. Probably a greater difference for men. I mean, the beauty standards for women have always been high, but I feel like they're higher now for men than they were back then. So, yeah, it just reminded me of that, where like people aged so much back then because their lives were rough. Not like ours are rough, but in a different way. Theirs were rough, like physically rough. Ours are probably more mentally and emotionally rough, but.
Amen to that, brother.
Yes. But yeah, they had some moments like that were like really funny, but they were too few and far between.
Yeah. Especially with like an hour and a half. It's a short movie. And like, but it feels longer because like you're waiting for that joke to hit.
Yeah.
I think my favorite character was the rival like gang leader.
Roman.
He was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, he was like obviously supposed to be an Italian immigrant or something.
Yeah,
and it's honestly a genius way to get as many F words in as possible
by not using a single one.
No, but it sounds so close to it. He says fargin instead of fucking.
And he says cork-sucker, and he just uses so many
bastages,
different...
Bastages, he says.
Cork suck my bowels.
Yeah.
He would use all these words that it's a PG-13 film, but if he used one of those, he could only use like one of them.
Or if you're not listening carefully, it sounds like the word. So it's just it's a brilliant way to get as many in as possible.
And he used them. He used them all.
Used them. Every single sentence he had.
He was my favorite part, especially the kid.
Yes.
Like that's what was the weirdest part, and it's a good example for the pacing. Is this kid? In the beginning of the movie, he'd be jumping around trying to stop a shootout, basically, in this casino in the beginning of the movie. And he'd be doing gymnastics and shit, and they'd be like music cues, and then it jumps to, the gang rival just cursing and no music. And he's just like, you fargin, you cork-sucker, and he's just going crazy. And then it goes back to the kid, music playing, dongs and bings and all these noises. Yeah. And then it goes back to him fucking screaming. Yeah. He was hilarious. Yeah. But there was so many sound cues and so many jokes and just little slapsticks that just weren't doing it for me.
Yeah.
A lot of them in the movie are good. But I think it's both a pacing thing and kind of the actors themselves things. Like they didn't have the chemistry. Stiff. they didn't have the chemistry to make it work. Yeah, stiffness is like a huge thing there.
Yeah, it's weird because like not very few of the dialogue moments are funny, but the chaotic moments, like you were just saying, where he's like doing gymnastics through a shootout, and then they cut back to him just cursing without music. The chaos is entertaining. I wouldn't necessarily say funny, but it's like entertaining in a way that like sometimes gave me a smile on my face. Yeah. But I would say the dialogue is like 33% funny, 66% not funny. And there are a few bits that are humorous, where the doctor is just obviously scamming him, where he says, your mother lost her larynx or whatever he says. He lost like an organ or something.
It's something every time.
Yeah, like it's obvious that he's scamming them at that point, and they're just too stupid to really get it. Yeah. So there are definitely moments there, but yeah, I agree. It's weird. It's just a weird movie, which I can see why you fell asleep and I was on my phone the first time I watched it.
I could pretty much tell you right when I passed the fuck out.
Yeah.
It was when he grew up.
Yeah.
15 minutes in.
Poor Michael Keaton. His face will do that to you.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I love Michael Keaton.
No, he's great in a lot of movies. Definitely. Yeah. I think this style of movie, you have to have the right cast and right people. Obviously, that's the same thing, but I said it twice. But whatever. You have to have the right working environment and everything to make it work. Right script.
Yeah. I think this would have been better. I know I mentioned them before. If it was a Marx Brothers movie, because they're all like really goofy and they all play like different parts. If it was somehow like a Three Stooges movie, where it's just like these utter buffoons in these intense situations, but instead it's like somewhat competent buffoons, which like you make them too competent, it's not funny. You make them not competent enough, it is funny. But if you're in that middle, it's still not that funny.
Yeah.
It's just it was too much of the middle ground. Like it would have been an interesting drama if they were more competent. It would have been hilarious if they were incompetent, but they're just like somewhat competent. So it's just like, what's the joke here? What is the bit? It's
and I mean Michael Keaton's great, but
yeah.
And I don't want to compare to the two because fucking Leslie Mann is just an absolute legend at this type of humor. But there's the way it's like body language, it's timing, it's everything. And Leslie had that shit down.
You mean Leslie Nielsen?
That's what I said. Who did I
say?
Leslie
Mann is Judd Apatow's wife and
actress. What the fuck? I love that woman. That's
she's
why
great.
I said her name. Leslie Nielsen, he was just so good at everything. And you've got to, for a movie like this to work, you've got to have it down. Yeah. And I mean, Michael Keaton's great, but I mean, I don't think he would have definitely. He did all right, but he definitely.
If it were him surrounded by mostly funny people, I think it would have been good. Peter Boyle's really funny. Dom DeLuise is really funny. I believe Griffin Dunne was a comedian actor as well. No, I mean he's an American Werewolf in London, which is kind of funny, but like he's not a straight comedic actor like Dom DeLuise or Peter Boyle. I feel like if you're gonna have a somewhat funny but mostly intense Michael Keaton, you got to have really funny people surrounding him. And Richard Dimitri was also funny. He played Roman Troy Moronie, and of course Danny DeVito's funny as well. But like, it's just not. The balance is just weird throughout the entire thing. It
felt like maybe they took like 3 of the shots and then they just chose one of the 3 best of like the cool like crazy scenarios and stuff like that. But it never felt like they were like really happy with any of them. So they were like, oh, that'll do. And then they move on. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, it felt a little lazy.
Yeah. But I mean, for the most part, I don't want to dog water this movie. Like it was good.
It's fine.
But I mean, I know why I fell asleep. It is maybe just a little bit forgettable. Like
I definitely enjoyed it more this time than I did the first time, and that's not just because I was paying attention. It's just like I kind of saw what the first time I was just like, how does anyone find this funny? And then this time I was just like, okay, I can see where it doesn't work for me, but I can see why other people would find this funny.
There's a lot of great skits. I've only seen maybe like 2 or 3 that were ever on the internet of scenes in this.
Yeah.
There's the one where what the fuck? It's like the second time the first time when Michael Keaton's like an adult, and the doctor comes up, and he's like, "Oh, for $49.95, your mother can get a new leg," or whatever the fuck.
Oh, that happens when he's a kid. The $49.95, unless you're just talking about another one and got the price wrong.
I got the whatever it is.
Okay.
So the second time he actually meets the character, the doctor, is I've seen that clip. I've only seen one other one, and then there's just not, I guess, that many ones that stick out compared to other films. Even like the scary movies, there's a bunch of the clips after like 2 that I've seen circulate the internet more than this movie.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not trying to dog water this.
I mean, it says something that this was kind of like the first parody movie. Not the first one, but it's like, it's the first obvious parody, where I feel like parodies before this kind of blended in with films of that genre, where they were funny. Like there's one, I forget the name of it, but it's like this a private detective who's trying to retire, and the whole movie's just essentially he and his wife getting drunk, and his wife persuading him to keep working or whatever. It's a really funny movie, but like that was like the first of its genre, and also the first parody of that genre, if that makes sense, because it was that early where it's just like it was funny, so it was a parody, but it's also just like that kind of movie as well. And this was like the first, like, hey, let's take a bunch of these shticks and you know, make like a Scarface, not the Al Pacino one, but like the first Scarface movie. Let's make one of those movies, but with, you know, ridiculous antics and whatnot, like a baby coming out with a Tommy machine gun, or Thompson machine gun, whatever they're called.
Tommy gun.
Tommy gun. That's what I was going for. So it's at a weird point where like I feel like film didn't really know how to do like a really good parody. Yeah. But it's also like one of the first parodies of its kind. So you got to give it credit for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love Danny DeVito's little scene where they're like, him and Keaton are having dinner together. He's like, you know, I didn't really expect this. You're one of the more sensitive men. I was wondering if you wanted to get dinner sometime. He just casually came out gay and was like, I'm getting my eye on you. I just love Danny DeVito transitioning into that little piece. I was like, oh, this is great. Why can't he do that in front of me?
I would love to have Danny DeVito hit on me. It's Amy Heckerling. She is a pretty well-respected comedic director. I mean, this was her movie after Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I believe. Let me make sure I'm not talking about out of my ass here. But yeah, like she did National Lampoon's European Vacation, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Clueless. Pretty much not much after that. But like those are all pretty big movies for the comedic scene of the 80s and 90s. So like everyone has a miss here and there. So like I don't think this is really a good indicator of her talent, because everything else she has made has been pretty good. But the one thing I wanted to mention, I texted you this earlier because I didn't want to bring it up, but you gave me no choice by not responding.
I'm a piece of shit.
You are. I love how, in order to persuade his brother Tommy to wait to have sex, but like wait after marriage, he shows him Beau is afraid.
Yep. The whole. Well, I would like to let you know that I didn't watch it yet.
At that point? Okay.
At that point. So
and then you
I was
forgot
like,
about it.
I'm just going to find out when I figure that out.
Yes.
And yes, for anybody
he shows
who
him like a little
know.
a video where everyone has gigantic balls, which is, you know, slight spoiler, but also not really. Because they hint at it throughout the entire film.
How do you call it? Huge
huge huevos. huevos gigante, as they say. I don't know if that's proper grammar, but yeah. I just thought that was funny. But yeah, the movie overall is fine. I think it misses a lot, but there are a lot of really funny points. Yeah. Michael Keaton is the same age in this as I am now, which is weird.
Isn't it weird that we're getting that close to that age where it's just like
every time I'm watching something, I'm just like, I wonder how old they were in this.
Just gently reminded.
They were younger than me, or they're the same age as me. It's so weird. And then I also love how the theme song was performed by Weird Al. Extra points from me for that. So, yeah,
for you specifically.
Yes. I love Weird Al.
I don't know if I have too much to talk about.
I don't either. I've said everything. I've quenched all my notes.
Yeah.
And all that.
The jokes that hit, they hit, and the ones that don't make it a longer movie than it actually is. But overall, it wasn't too bad. I dog watered it, but that was only because I didn't have too much else to say about it. It's easier to talk about the bad than it is something that was mediocre.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. Like, I'm not mad that it exists. I'm not mad that it's not funny. They tried something. Not everything succeeded.
Yep.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, so that does it for our review for Johnny Dangerously. That brings us to The Judgment. As always, it needs to be a unanimous decision whether that goes to the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. Hold on. I flip a coin generator. Heads or tails?
Tails.
Tails, you go first.
Yes. I'm going to go ahead and say it does not go on that shaloof.
Nice and fast.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I'd agree. It definitely has its moments, but they're too few and far between. And it's the awkward parts are not awkward in an enjoyable way. It's just kind of weird tonally, but it is what it is. I didn't hate watching it for a second time, and I know this has its audience, but
made me want to watch Mr. Mom. That's for
sure. Indeed. But Johnny Dangerously does not go on the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. That brings us to our assignment for next week. It is my turn to pick.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, I have a list, a very long list of movies. It's obscenely long, if I'm honest. Like,
just the way I like it.
Is this podcast going to last that long? I hope it does, but we'll see. But I've been having Glen pick a number, and then I have a random number generator that I start counting from. And I figured out a way to make it so I don't have to count, and I'm excited for that.
There you go. Glenn,
pick a number between 1 and 36.
4.
4. Okay, that makes it super easy.
Yeah, I didn't know you had this generator now. I was going to help you this time.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a movie I'm pretty sure you haven't seen.
Oh.
I know you have meant to watch it every single time you've babysat my house and my dog.
Yep.
You house sat, and that is The Last Man. Sorry, The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
We built these ships, dredged these canals in the San Francisco they never knew existed. This is our home. You two stick together.
Yes.
Did I not watch this movie yet?
You didn't rate it if you did.
I did not, actually.
Yeah. I know, like, every time you watch my house, it's one of the ones you pull out on the on the
shelf.
Shelf, yeah. Give me one second. I just want to see who all has it. Okay, so the last black man in San Francisco. A young man searches for home in the changing city that seems to have left him behind. Directed by Joe Talbot, written by Jimmy Fails, Joe Talbot, and Rob Richard. It's starring Jimmy Fails, Jonathan Majors, Rob Morgan, Tachina Arnold, Mike Epps is in there, Finn Whitrock is in there, Danny Glover's in there. and others. This is going to be on Tubi, Pluto, and Plex, or if you're like me, on good old Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I'm actually really excited for you to see this because I know I've been wanting you to see it for a long time.
Yes, sir.
I believe this came out when you were in Virginia.
I was still in Virginia.
At the very least, you might have just came back from Virginia and weren't in a movie watching mood.
Yeah, so this was June. This was in the middle of all.
Okay.
Or it released in Brazil in June. Most likely almost everywhere else. But yeah, this is when I was in the middle of everything. So
yes. Yeah, so hold on, I'm curious when it did come out in the States. Because I went and saw it by myself in Philly. Doesn't say. Oh, I hit the wrong thing.
June 7th.
June 7th, yeah. That makes sense. So yeah, I went and saw it by myself at the Ritz in Philly, which for the most part doesn't exist anymore, which makes me sad.
That is sad.
Yeah, the theaters still exist. They're just owned by someone else, and who knows? They might be doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so The Last Black Man in San Francisco is our assignment for next week. Thank you everyone for listening. As always, you can check out our website at www.keystonefilmreview.com. On Instagram, we are Keystone_film_review. Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Keystone Film Review, and on Letterboxd, I am Mike KFR,
and I'm Glen KFR.
And that will do it till next week when we watch The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
And that we will.
If you're going to San Francisco.
Now keep going.
Be sure to wear flowers in your hair. That's in the trailer, and also I'm pretty sure a song. But anyway, goodbye.
Bye-bye.